What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. You guys, Derek and Cody with you as always. And guys, we just got done with this Colts 4-game win streak that they are now currently on. And we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of look back at the last 4 games of the Indianapolis Colts and kind of talk about some of the studs and duds along the way. Who's been excelling, who has been on the decline, or basically just hasn't been doing their job. I mean, again, guys, we're kind of just generalizing here. We're not going on a huge tangent to name every single player who's a stud and dud, but we're mainly talking about the biggest players or personnel groups of this team over the last 4 games. So, obviously, over the last 4 games, the Indianapolis Colts have beaten the Carolina Panthers, the New England Patriots, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tennessee Titans, albeit 3 of these 4 teams are 3 of the bottom 6 or 7 teams in all of the NFL right now. But nevertheless, the Indianapolis Colts are winning these games, and you can talk about studs and duds of this team and how the team just keeps winning ball games. So let's go ahead and hop into our first group of studs. And this is basically just a majority group here. And Cody, we're actually going to make a video on this group as well here shortly. And that is the pass rush right now. Indianapolis, over this 4-game win streak that they have been on, has sacked the quarterback 21 times in this 4-game win streak. And that's just insane because the crazy part is it's not one person doing all of it. It's mainly everybody. You know, Samson Ebukam has 4 in this stretch. I think Kwity Paye has 4 during the stretch. DeForest Buckner has a couple. Dio Adangbo, I think, has 4 in the stretch. So, I mean, it's a good combination of everyone in this group of defensive linemen that are consistently getting good pressure on these quarterbacks and taking advantage of these bad offensive lines that they're facing.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those stats, 21 sacks in the last 4 games. Derek, this game against the Titans marked the 3rd straight game that the Colts have recorded 5 or more sacks, which is the longest streak in the NFL this season when it comes to that. And the Colts right now on pace, Derek, for 42 on the season. That's tied for 4th most. This is according to Mike Chappell, by the way. It's tied for 4th most by a team since stats became an official stat in 1982. So that's pretty wild. The fact that the Colts are doing some of these things that they're doing, getting after the quarterbacks. You mentioned there haven't been the greatest teams they've been playing against, but to their credit, they've done exactly what you would expect them to do. They've gone out and they've dominated every single offensive line that they've played in terms of pass rush. And so they've done a great job. And you mentioned it, different guys on this team stepping up and making plays. 3-4 guys here, Derek, in this stretch that have 4 more sacks. And it's been pretty impressive to see that. And then not to mention some of those other unsung heroes that we don't necessarily talk about, the Taekwon Lewis's of the world, who, while he doesn't have a crazy amount of sacks, he's just consistently in there and creating pressure and getting a few sacks now and again and opening opportunities for other guys. And so, yes, this whole unit as a whole, Derek, it's crazy to see how good it's been this year because, I mean, we've seen in years past, Derek, where it's been DeForest Buckner and then nobody even relatively close in the sack department. And DeForest Buckner is not really a guy that's going to get, 12 to 15 sacks per season. I think he plays like it. He probably deserves some of that stuff. But what we've seen, Derek, I think the most sacks he's had has been 9.5 with Indianapolis in his first season. So it's not like he's like this mega sack guy that's getting all these numbers, although he's a great player. So it's great to see all these different guys like you mentioned. And talk about, man, and I know we'll talk about this in another video, but talk about a risk and reward type of thing that the Colts have had with Samson Ebukam so far. I mean, they signed him in the offseason, Derek. His career high was last year. He had 5 sacks with the 49ers, and the Colts take a risk on him. And he right now has 8 sacks and leads the team. And he's on pace, Derek, for a double-digit sack season, which is great to see. And Derek, between him and Kwity Paye right now, the Colts are on pace to have two guys with 10-plus sacks for the first time. I don't know if you saw the stat or not, but if not, I'll read it off for you. For the first time since 2010, when Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney accomplished that feat. So to say the defensive line is performing well, I think is a massive understatement this year in terms of the pass rush, and they've done a great job. And I think it's great because, like you mentioned, it's not just what we saw like in 2013, Robert Mathis, 19.5 sacks, and nobody else comes close. It's been consistently different guys that have, created pressure and gotten sacks, and it's been great to see. I admittedly was hard on Kwity Paye when he kind of had that dry stretch in the middle of the season, kind of before the win streak. But to his credit, he has stepped it up, like you mentioned, and he's played extremely well. Obviously, Abukum the same way, 2 straight games with 2 sacks now, back-to-back games. And so it's awesome to see. And Derek, if you would tell me at the beginning of the season that DeForest Buckner would be 4th right now on the team in sacks, I would say you're insane. There's no way DeForest Buckner, but it's not like Buckner's been playing bad either, Yeah.
That's I would have said that the defensive line's been trash all year. That's what I would have thought immediately, what I would have said.
Right, exactly. So, yes, this defensive line, in terms of getting after the quarterback, I think it's been above expectation, and it's been great to see. And the great thing is, Derek, a lot of these young guys are really starting to come into their own. You mentioned Dio Dang, talked about Dio Dangbo, talked about Kwity Paye, all these guys, guys that the Colts took high picks for, and we've seen in the past how a lot of these picks, when the Colts have kind of gone with some early round picks, they haven't really panned out a whole lot. So it's great to see that. The combination of some veterans, that the Colts have either signed in free agency or traded for, and draft picks, I think it's working very, very well. And so shout out to Nate Ollie, the defensive line coach, for what he's done this year, getting this unit to where it is, getting after the quarterback as much as they have. They've been nothing short of fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll save some of the big numbers. Like, we'll talk about it in the other video. We'll keep talking about like the rest of the sack numbers and kind of what it means later on in the other video. And I'll save that for another one. But yeah, I mean, you have 4 guys that realistically, Cody, on this back stretch, all 4 of them could realistically hit double figures in sacks, which is absolutely insane. One thing I would say, I will mention this right before we move to another spot here, though. If you look at the Colts, so the Colts are 2nd in the NFL in sacks at this current moment with sacks this year. They have more sacks, Cody, in this stretch, have more or about the same sacks during these last 4 games as 4 teams in the NFL. So the Chicago Bears, the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, and the New York Giants all have equal to or less sacks than what the Colts have had in their last 4 games alone. I mean, that's incredible to think about what Indianapolis has done during the stretch.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and hop
they've done
into
it.
What's up?
Sorry. I was going to say, and they've done it without Grover Stewart for 6 games, which I know he's not a pass rush specialist, but like they've done it without one of their best players on that defensive line. So it's been impressive.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and hop into another stud here on the defensive side. I think it's the only one that we really had left on the defensive side, and that was Kenny Moore. He basically helped start this win streak and what he was able to do. Those 2 pick sixes, Cody, in that game against the Carolina Panthers, the weekend that you were getting married, which started all this off in the first place. Kenny Moore just put the whole team on his back and said, "I got you, Cody. It's all good, man. I'm going to win this one for you and win this one for Colts Nation." And sure enough, that helped get it off and running. And we saw, Kenny Moore has been good even before the win streak, but he's just gotten even better as that win streak has gone along. And he's been a consistently great player through the stretch. And, he's been that veteran in all of this win streak that the Colts really needed in that secondary room. And I love what Kenny Moore has been able to do down the stretch.
Yep. He's been great. Definitely been a great presence, a veteran presence in there for this very young secondary, and really helped to weather the storm, Derek, with Juju Brents missing like 5 games in a row now. He hasn't even been a part of this winning streak, and the Colts have still been able to do a pretty relatively good job, all things considered. Yeah, they haven't been perfect, but I think they've done a pretty good job at, containing some of these passing attacks, and Kenny Moore has been a big reason why. And so he definitely deserves his props. He's been one of the better corners. I think he's been the number 1 slot corner in the NFL this year, Derek, and he's definitely been that during this stretch. So, yeah, Kenny Moore definitely deserves all of the love that he is getting. I didn't mention Julian Blackmon, but he definitely is a guy that always deserves some praise as well. I know he's not technically on our list, but I just wanted to mention him. I think him and Kenny have been kind of the 2 best players back there in that secondary this year, and they've kind of had to be, being those vets in the room. So definitely want to give them. But yeah, Kenny's been absolutely fantastic for the Colts this year, and definitely is a guy that, hopefully the Colts bring back, and he can kind of be that anchor in that secondary room with a very young corner room for the Colts.
Yeah, it's definitely been great for him. Let's go ahead and hop into the last lone stud player that we've had over this stretch. And Cody, it's Michael Pittman. And I mean, for obvious reasons, I don't really need to explain it much more. So far this year, there has only been 4 games this year where Michael Pittman has not recorded at least 8 catches in a game. Talk about a dude's production being overloaded this year for sure. And, like I said, he's been putting up great numbers even before the stretch. But during the stretch, what you have seen, he has been the overwhelming favorite in the whole offensive game plan, and it has started to really get the offense going. Against the Panthers, 8 catches for 64 yards. Patriots, 8 catches for 84 yards. The Buccaneers had 10 catches for 107 yards. And then this last game against the Titans, 11 receptions for 105 yards and the game-winning touchdown. It's only been a matter of time until we get Michael Pittman. That's the first touchdown for Michael Pittman throughout this whole win streak, which is a crime in and of itself, because the one time they throw it to Michael Pittman in the red zone, what happened? Scored a touchdown, we win, right? Like, it's kind of hard to believe that Shane Steichen and Gardner Minshew haven't figured that out yet, but they finally did, and it's worked. But you're just seeing, Cody, how a few weeks prior to that, talking about the Saints, talking about the Jags, and talking about like a couple other times when the offense just looked stale, when Minshew wasn't getting Pittman the ball as much as he is now. You're just seeing how Pittman just seems to always be open now, and Pittman is just always getting first downs. And it's been incredible to see how he is getting all this production. Like I said, 37 catches over the last 4 games for Michael Pittman, and whom, by the way, I don't know if you had saw it. You probably already did, but Michael Pittman has the most catches in their first 4 seasons in Indianapolis Colts history. That includes Reggie Wayne. That includes Marvin Harrison. That includes T.Y. Hilton. Most catches in their first 4 seasons as a Colt ever. And the crazy part is we remember the first year he was hurt for half of it. And he even said how, like, that first year was a learning experience for him, and he wasn't even, like, fully ready. And to do it with all this different quarterback situations that he's had to deal with, and during this stretch, he's been the main proprietor of the Colts offense.
Yeah, you mentioned it. A guy that just consistently is finding ways to get open and is making plays. Like, so many catches from Michael Pittman Jr., so much volume, and he has definitely come through, Derek, every single time the Colts have gone after him and targeted him. This was his best performance in terms of catches here in this winning streak here. Obviously, you look at, the game, he had in the last 2 games alone, Derek, he has 21 catches for over 200 yards. So this dude is being consistently targeted as a number 1, and he is producing as a number 1. And Michael Pittman Jr. consistently now is being that guy, And Derek, I've just never understood the Michael Pittman Jr. hate. Like, I've just never understood it because he's just been a guy that's been so consistent. He's tough as nails. He's not afraid to get scrappy and get in there. And he's big and strong, and he makes those contested catches. And so he's been absolutely great for the Colts. And, you mentioned it, not great quarterback play. It's not like he's been playing with, prime Andrew Luck or prime Peyton Manning. Like, he's played with, think about it, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, the whole thing last year, Anthony Richardson for a little bit, and Gardner Minshew. So it's not like he's ever really played with a top-flight quarterback. So that makes you excited for the future with Michael Pittman, because you think if Anthony Richardson stays on the field and stays healthy and continues to grow, what could that do for Michael Pittman Jr.? What could that do for him and his stat line? Because right now, Derek, he's on pace for about 1,250 yards on the season. Derek, he already this season through 12 games, this is crazy. He already has 87 catches on the year. That's nuts. That's crazy. And if he continues this on, Derek, he's going to have well over 100 catches. He might be going for 150.
He's going to have over 100 catches by the end of the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah,
he might mess around. He might hit 100 catches next week. If he gets 13 catches next week, he has 100. So, yeah, you're right.
It's been great. So, yeah, I love to see Michael Pittman get the love that he deserves because, Derek, I talked about Michael Pittman having kind of a bounce back year, and I got some pushback from that for people who said he didn't have a bad year last year. And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying he had a bad year last year. What I'm saying is, Derek, there have been multiple times this year where we have said that is one of the best plays of Michael Pittman Jr.'s career right there this season. How many times have we said that this year? It's been at least 2 or 3, if not more than that now. And the dude has consistently been putting up number 1 wide receiver numbers. He's consistently been that guy for the Colts offense when all else fails, when Josh Downs gets injured, when Alec Pierce isn't getting targeted. The main guy has been Michael Pittman Jr. And so I'm not saying he had a bad year last year, but he has ascended his game to another level to the point, Derek, where I think even some of those naysayers that said don't pay Pittman, he's not a number 1, are starting to come around, which is definitely awesome to see. So I love to see what Pittman's bringing, and I think and I hope, and I think the Colts will do this. I don't think they'll let him walk out of the building, but pay the dude what he needs to be paid. Like, keep him around, because he has been the only model of consistency these last 4 years. He's been in Indianapolis, and he deserves to get the money he deserves because he has been nothing short of fantastic this year and a model of consistency every single year for the Colts. So I absolutely love what Michael Pittman has been doing. He deserves all the love. Especially it's like he was already playing well this year, but the last 4 games, you talk about it, Derek, you already mentioned it, but let's just look at it one more time. 8 catches, 10 catches, 11 catches. So, this dude is just continuing to ascend into the number 1 wide receiver territory. And I love to see it. And hopefully him and Gardner Minshew continue to build on that because Pittman's been great this year.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Last little stud for a group of people here with before we go to the duds, and that is the pass protection. Pass protection's been really great over the last couple of weeks. We mainly talked about the reason why Gardner Minshew is taking the sacks that he is mainly just been on his own accord, right, Cody? We've kind of mentioned it several times, several weeks of just Gardner getting happy feet and running into pressure that's just not there. So,
yeah,
we've kind of talked about how it's not been the O-line's fault as much, but we talked about the O-line getting back to being what it once was. And it's pretty crazy too, because the Indianapolis Colts have not had a fully healthy O-line all year. It's always been at least one guy missing. And even when you talk about the Titans game, even then, Braden Smith goes out after the first or second series in the entire game. Right. So, he was out very quickly and didn't come back. Blake Freeland had to take over. You talk about during the stretch, Ryan Kelly had to miss some games. So you had to talk about Wesley French getting in there. So even amidst all of the, situations where you had backup offensive linemen in through this stretch, you've still been able to move people. You've still been able to pass protect very well for happy feet Gardner Minshew back there. So
Mhm.
you got to give props to the offensive line for keeping that consistency going.
Yeah, you're right. Like you've had two different guys, if my memory serves correct, here in the last couple of weeks. Leslie French at center, and then Blake Freeland. He's played both left and right. So, and they're both pretty young guys. Like these aren't guys that have a ton of experience, but they played well. Given the different opportunities they've had. So, definitely think the offensive line, even though there still are some sacks that are being shown up. I'm not saying they've been perfect, but I do think you look at some of those sacks, and you can't blame the offensive line for a decent majority of those this year. I mean, Derek, the strip sack that they had at the end of that first half, I believe it was, or I guess the Colts came back and then they get the field goal. But, before when the Colts were driving down, that's on Gardner Minshew, man. He's got to have some pocket awareness. He's just standing there in the pocket. He definitely could have stepped up. But what's he do? He just hangs in there way too long and the ball gets stripped. And I'm just like, that's on the quarterback, man. He's got to either get that out or run up and do something else. And so, yeah, I think the offensive line, given the circumstances, I think they played well. And the two guys that have filled in, I think have played pretty well also. So, yeah, the offensive line, in terms of pass protection, they definitely deserve to be talked about and praised for that.
Yeah, 100%. Now, let's move from the studs to the duds here. Even amidst this great win streak that the Colts are currently on, there has been some people and groups that haven't been great when it comes to all of this and has almost lost the Colts a couple of these games. Cody, we got to talk about the run defense in the midst of all of it. This has been the most glaring issue with the Indianapolis Colts over this win streak, and it's no surprise that the main reason that this has been the biggest issue has been because of the loss of Grover Stewart. And when you lost Grover Stewart, obviously you're about to get him back after this week, but now you've given up about 150 yards a game with running the football. It's truly insane that the Colts have been able to win these football games in spite of that. It's mainly just been the fact that, these teams can run the football they want, Cody, but they're facing these quarterbacks and these offensive lines that just can't consistently pass against them because of the fact that, they're getting consistent pressure on their quarterbacks. So that has been the big thing, but definitely is a cause for concern, even when Grover Stewart comes back, that this Colts run defense is far from being desirable.
It's been rough, man. It's been really, really tough this year. And we knew, that might be something with this Gus Bradley defense that you might kind of give up a little bit, right? We even said it last year and, you might get more sacks, but you're going to probably have some more struggles stopping the run. And somehow, some way, this team, despite the fact that we would say they clearly upgraded from Yannick Ngakoue to Samson Mabukam in terms of the run defense, they've somehow been worse this year. It's been very strange to see that and just kind of the drop-off. And it's not like, Derek, they've always just gone right up the middle either. It's been some of those things out wide, where guys just flat out miss. And it's been very, very bizarre this year to see, like, are the guys even trying? Like, what is going on? Like, why can't anybody just tackle? Like, why are we taking these awful angles? Like, what's the deal here? And so that's just been, it's been very concerning this year. And hopefully Grover Stewart gives this unit, coming back, gives this unit in general just more of a boost. Even his play on the field, obviously, but maybe just more confidence. Like, all right, we got our guy back. We can get back to where we were before. I don't know what it is, if it's just a lack of confidence thing or if it's just a lack of playmakers. But I think, Derek, the Colts need to invest this offseason into getting some more run-stopping guys to help them out in certain packages because, it's been pretty rough at times.
Yeah, it's been rough. And even in this last game against Tennessee, not good. So hopefully,
no. To be fair, I feel like they were better in the second half than the first half because Derrick Henry had literally almost like 80 yards in the first half, and then he finished with like 100 some. So they weren't great.
And to be helpful with that, Derrick Henry did miss the entirety of the fourth quarter because of that lower body injury. I don't know what it was, but even Tajay Spears had a couple of really good runs in the second half. Yeah. But you're right. It was it was a lot better because, they gave up a couple of really big runs. But outside of that, they collectively did a much better job of slowing down the rushing attack in the second half. The defense in the second half in total did a really much better job. So can't really complain too much on that. Let's go ahead and head to the next dud here. And it's the second to last one. And it's been Gardner Minshew through these 4 games. Outside of the Tennessee game, and even in the midst of that, Cody, there was a couple times where we watched and we're like, man, if that throw would have been accurate, or man, if you don't fumble the football. I mean, there's obviously still some bad moments from Gardner Minshew in that first half of this game. But obviously, in this Tennessee game, it's the first time all year that you actually won a football game because of Gardner Minshew. And, that has been a task that the Indianapolis Colts have been trying to get at through this win streak the whole way. But the last 3 games prior to that, we almost lost the games because of Gardner Minshew, right? He didn't even have a touchdown against the Carolina Panthers, didn't have a touchdown against the New England Patriots, and also had only like 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has had more turnovers in this 4-game win streak than he's had touchdowns. And it has definitely caused the fan base to really wish that Shane Steichen would stop putting so much faith in him. Kind of hard to really be mad at him right now because of obviously winning the game against the Tennessee Titans makes things a lot better. But no doubt through this win streak, Gardner has had his fair share of problems.
Yeah, he definitely has. And it definitely feels like the Indianapolis Colts, you mentioned it, during the last 4 weeks, they've won in spite of Gardner Minshew in a lot of ways, right? Especially the last 3 weeks prior to the Tennessee game. But you mentioned even in the Tennessee game, you think, okay, if he would have hit Alec Pierce in the end zone when Pierce was open, he doesn't overthrow him by 5 yards, up above him, and if he would have made a few more key throws in that game, if he wouldn't have thrown that boneheaded 2-point, pick 6, whatever you want to call it, like that game wouldn't even gone to overtime. Like just things like that. They wouldn't have fumbled the ball. When he fumbled the ball, maybe that, leads to a touchdown there instead of you having to come back, and kick a field goal to end the first half. Things like that where you're like, man, like if he would have just done a few more things well, then the Colts would have probably won this game by a lot more, Derek, because I think you really look at it and you say the Colts have won in spite of Gardner Minshew in a lot of ways. And so he's so infuriating, Derek, because, we obviously know the turnovers. He's good for at least 1, if not 2 per game where you're like, what in the world are you looking at, man? And a couple more that probably should have been picked today or turned over today. It's maddening because, comes out the first drive, boom, delivers a strike to Alec Pierce. You're like, okay. But in the back of your mind that he's going to do something stupid. Like you just know he's going to. He's done it all year. And that's what makes him so maddening because he shows flashes of brilliance. And then he just looks like the most incompetent and most unaware quarterback you've ever seen in your life. It's just maddening because it's like it's either very high or very low for Gardner Minshew. And I think that's what you've seen from the Colts offense. There's been some really big highs. There's been some really big lows. And I think, honestly, that falls squarely on the shoulders of your starting quarterback, Gardner Minshew. And you've won not because of him outside of, again, he did throw the touchdown, the nice pass to Alec Pierce and the touchdown to Michael Pittman. Okay, yeah. But that's really the first time this whole year, Derek, like you can say Gardner Minshew went down and drove and won you the game. I mean, you look at the different things. The Colts defense wins the game against Tampa Bay. The Colts defense wins the game against Carolina. The Colts defense continues to win these football games in different ways. The Colts game won, the Colts won against New England. Like they won all of these pretty much. So, yeah, it's been rough with Gardner Minshew. There's been some good, like getting Michael Pittman involved and doing what he's done. Getting these receivers involved has been great. But also the lows have been what's killed your offense this year. And honestly, Derek, a big reason, I said it earlier, why I think some of these games have been a lot closer than they should have been.
Yep, 100%. It's been a struggle when it comes to watching Gardner Minshew. But as I said on social media, I'm not allowed to say too many more negative things about Gardner Minshew for the remainder of the year because of Gardner
Until next week.
Minshew winning the game. We'll leave it to this guy over here. Nobody
You
said
know I
anything.
will.
He never said anything about it. It's just me. Anyways, last one here. Talk about the run game as of recently. We can talk about it because really the Indianapolis Colts run game over the last several weeks hasn't really been that great, Cody. We were talking about it just now. I mean, Tampa Bay, yeah, Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor had it going really, really well in that game. But outside of that, think about the Carolina Panthers game. Yeah, they did a good job in that one, I guess, but I mean, it wasn't that great. It didn't help generate a lot of points offensively. And when you talk about the game against the New England Patriots, outside of that first drive for the Indianapolis Colts, there was no rushing attack in that game. And then in this last matchup against the Tennessee Titans, the running game was non-existent with Zach Moss. He was averaging not even 3 yards carry. So, yeah, I mean, we kind of went into that game, Cody, thinking that the run game was going to be what has to set the tone to win the game. But turns out it's been the opposite, especially recently.
Yes. Yeah, really outside of last week against Tampa Bay, you mentioned it. Like they haven't been good. Let's be real. They have not been good. Against the Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Taylor averaged 2.6 yards per carry in that game. The Colts did not run the ball effectively against New England. Same way. Jonathan Taylor averaged 3 yards per carry. So the Colts, two of these games didn't hit 100 yards. And then today, Zach Moss averages 2.7. So the Colts have not been great running the football as of recent. And again, Jonathan Taylor getting injured, that doesn't help you out at all. But still, like this offense recently, they haven't been able to run the football effectively. And that definitely is something that needs to change because, with a quarterback like Gardner Minshew, like we mentioned, you can't put all this on his shoulders because he's going to make a mistake. He's going to do something dumb, and it's going to ultimately cost you these games. So I think if you were able to actually rely on this running attack, that would help you out so much and reduce some of these risky plays by putting the ball in Gardner Minshew's hands. So they got to be better running the football. They did such a great job against Tampa Bay. You thought, okay, maybe this offense is turning the corner a little bit, but they come back to earth again, and it wasn't pretty at all. And again, it's crazy because Zach Moss had all the carries against the Titans. He had 19 carries for only 51 yards. So Colts got to get back to it. And again, hopefully Taylor returns sooner rather than later within that 3 to 5 week timeline that was given. But yeah, the running game's got to be better if the Colts want to have that sustained and balanced attack and really take the pressure off of Minshew in this passing game.
Yep. 100%. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. That's our studs and duds for this win streak. And I think I can give an honorable mention here and say that Coach Shane Steichen definitely is another stud for some of the play calling that's been going on throughout all of this, the aggressiveness and the creativity and just galvanizing all of these guys. It's truly been incredible to watch. Again, Indianapolis has not lost a football game since October. So, I mean, if you need any more incentive to how good this team's playing right now, all you got to do is try to get to the playoffs and do what you got to do. But again, that'll do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always,